All right. I want to welcome everybody that's joined us this afternoon for Why Security for Your Business is Your Business. We have some security experts on the call with us today. For those of you who've joined us before, I'm Mark Sondergaard. I'm the Director of Channel Sales here at BullsEye. And with us today, we have Evan Branster and Jim McHale. And when Andrew can join us, Andrew Witt. So, gentlemen, do you want to say hello?
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome virtually.
All right. So we have a lot of information to share with you today. I think it's going to be some very valuable information. And talking about, security in your business and maybe taking in some directions that you really never thought of. So with that, when we see Andrew get here, we'll get him involved in the conversation too. But gentlemen, I guess one of the first things is what are some of the big picture challenges that small security teams face that we can, and what can we do to encourage their leadership to think differently?
Evan, do you want to run with that one first?
Yeah. Small security teams, just by the context of your question, they're small. So it's a handful of people, busy, usually wearing too many hats, too many roles. They're possibly IT instead of dedicated security, possibly have other roles like facilities. Maybe they run the cabling as the IT guy or deal with the door locks and the cameras. So just by the nature of your question, a small team is too busy as it is. It may also have.
I was going to say, and sometimes they even deal with bosses and things that the leaders don't fully understand the need for security. There's an issue of dealing with some of that as well.
Great.
Yeah, it's an expense, so it's kind of like thinking about it like insurance. You don't want to get hacked, and knowing where you have gaps has liability, but I think we were going to talk about that later.
Yeah. So I was a little remiss. Evan, you want to give a little background to yourself, and then James will have you do the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm a security engineer at BullsEye. I work on coming up with new products for us to sell in the security field.
Jim McHale, sales/solutions engineer. Been doing it for 20 plus years. Love what I do. Design full secure solution sets, utilizing all the product sets we have. So love it.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, guys. I didn't have you do that at the beginning. So moving along, the smaller businesses out there, less people to take care of security. Why would any of these hackers want to hack a small business like that?
Oh God, a lot of people think, oh, I'm too small to suffer a cyber attack kind of scenario. That's where they're like, why would they go after me? And realistically, there are pieces like what we would say, like even a small supply chain that they could go after. And so if I can get in with the little guy and get into their systems that already has a backdoor into a larger company, that's usually where they're going to go after some of those kind of scenarios. Evan, you want to add some color to that or some examples?
Yeah, I mean, I've been beating this example for 7 years now, but Target's HVAC vendor, their own security. I mean, they weren't the target. They were they were the target to get to Target. So,
Right.
Yeah, supply chain attack, exactly. It's a big one. I mean, you can. If you're trying to get into a CEO, you might go in through the receptionist. If you're trying to get in through the receptionist, maybe you're trying to get in through something the receptionist uses frequently, maybe for gifts, flower shop, local gift card type of thing. You could phish someone like that, or phish the company that she's going to go to. So she's not hacked, but
we had a great example in Germany. Wasn't there a hospital that they were using one of the medical devices or something, and that's how they got in? And it was through the actual medical device supply chain and caused really all kinds of havoc. I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a lot of these folks that think they're too small or don't have valuable information truly are the conduit into bigger things.
That's
And
exactly
it's
right.
not just that, it's the whole like unlocked doors philosophy too. You know, cars that aren't locked get broken into. Garages that aren't locked get broken into. It's the same thing with the small business. Just because you're only a small target, if you're an easy target, that's it's just easy to get into it.
Going to be the
Right.
path of least resistance, and that's what intelligent criminals are looking for. They're looking at, yes, I want a big score, but how do I get there with the path of least resistance? You know, and that's what they're trying to look at. And so to get in through a smaller scenario like that and to get into a larger one is the path of least resistance most times.
Yeah, it's the same philosophy as like if we've all seen like the most ridiculous spam email asking you to click something or asking you to reply, you know, you just delete it. But if that gets sent out 10,000 times and 5 people click on it, it might have been worth it.
From their point of view, of course.
Well, we have another special guest. I think Andrew has joined the call. Andrew, are you there?
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Clear as a
can.
bell.
All right.
Perfect.
Thanks for
Welcome.
joining. Why don't you just do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name's Andrew. I am on our customer relationship management team, and I am here with BullsEye to help with the security sales strategy and work with Evan on helping our customers enable and improve their cybersecurity business.
Thank you. So we've talked about, you know, the small security teams and these smaller organizations that don't think they have value to be hacked. So if they want to protect themselves, how much security budget should you be pitching that they need to bring the right tools to the table?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to vary based on the size of business and the industry that you're in. But, you know, the rule of thumb that we go by at least would be you'd like to pitch for around 10% of the IT budget to be dedicated to cybersecurity, information security. But, you know, that is going to change, and hopefully you can get even more than that and really up the budget and up your capabilities. But we typically say, yeah, around 10%.
It's a minimum of 10%. Remember, it's not one silver bullet that ever answers the security question. It's layered security that ensures that a company stays secure. And so 10% is the minimum you should be looking to put into it.
Jim, what was the answer for if someone might not know their IT budget or if they might not know what an appropriate IT budget is? What was you had an answer about the total percent as a total? I think it was 0.5 or 0.9, something like that.
Oh, of the total income that's coming in of a company, it should be 0.5% of the total income of a company is what you should be looking at to invest into your IT security infrastructure. And so that's the total perspective. Instead of looking at of a 10% of your IT, you're looking at the total 5% of what your gross revenue should be. You should be looking at putting back into back into security.
So based on that, though, I mean, that's the budget. But I mean, what do they have to look at? What are they in danger of losing by not having security and not taking care of their network?
Well, it depends on the customer, but for some, if it's say somebody that's PCI, somebody like Target, now that would be a much larger customer, but they could be a small customer as well. But if it's PCI related, well, they're done. They're shut down until this has been fixed, rectified, cleaned up, and paid back. And for a lot of companies, small businesses, it means it's time to shut the doors permanently. So that's the largest cost of it, but it's downtime, it's ransomware where they could extort money from you. Evan, you could add some flavor to this, and so could Andrew. I mean, both of you have lots of experience with this, understanding this.
Yeah, downtime is one that isn't thought of a lot. I've been a buyer for products before that feel expensive and then had to position it as, okay, well, what would it cost us if this happened? What would it cost us if we couldn't fix it for 48 hours? And then there's kind of things that how do you put a value on like your reputation? What if existing customers leave, potential customers never come because they've heard of you in an infamous way. How do you value that?
Yeah, I think
It's insurance for their business, is what you're saying.
Right.
And
Yeah,
more so one that is more likely to happen, I'd want to interject. Sorry about that, Andrew, because a lot of people, and I think this is a society type thing, a lot of insurance we all pay for different things that we really never use. This is one that it's not if you're going to use it, it's when it's going to happen. It's a statistic. Go ahead, Andrew.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's totally spot on. I mean, the thing that, I always like to use this example because these are a couple real world examples that tie into this. And Evan touched on part of it, being headquartered here in Detroit, we're manufacturing, we're automotive, and oftentimes it could be a very small manufacturing organization. Oftentimes they have, less layers of security. They may not have much security at all. Maybe their primary business is just one widget. It's one part, it's one tool that makes its way to, one of the OEMs. So what happens when one of your, PLC controllers, one of the robots that makes these parts that runs off of a Windows XP or a Server 2003, an older piece of technology, gets ransomware on it, and that line is shut down for a day? Now what happens? And people don't often think about that of that availability piece. Well, you're responsible to a Ford, a Chrysler, a GM, whoever, up to millions of dollars, in a minute, in an hour, in days. And all of a sudden, when Jim said, like, it can shut the doors, I mean, think about the penalties. If you're not, you have all that downtime that you have an SLA for, people often don't think of that. And it is something that can be as major as that. And that's why it should be so serious, especially in, some of those industries. And the other example I'll use, not from a what you can lose, that's not necessarily financial, is, just a couple months ago, we heard the story of how ransomware shut down a hospital in, I think it was Germany, and it shut down intakes, and a guy went to the ER and they literally said, hey, our systems are down and we cannot take you in. And on his trip over to the nearest hospital, which was over 30 minutes away, the man unfortunately passed away. And you can tie that directly back to a cyber attack. And it's not, how long until that, obviously, I mean, healthcare does take it seriously, but I mean, it's oftentimes the ramifications are a lot bigger than just financial or downtime, whatever. I mean, it's big.
Right. And Evan, wasn't there a water department within the last 6 months that also got hacked that got backdoored?
That Florida thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was in Florida. That's right.
Yeah, that was scary. It was someone hacked in through a support screen share application, where you can kind of like this, but not, instead of just sharing the screen, you can take control too. They hacked in through that. My best guess is that came I don't think that ever came out. So my best guess was it was probably phishing. It was probably just credential harvesting, trick someone into giving them their login. It's not really it's not a virus. It's a trick. But
right. But part of phishing is really that con. I mean, This is what it is, guys. It's the digital con.
Yep.
Right. But that hurt some people. That had the ability to hurt people because it basically raised the chemical values in it and made the water unusable.
It did.
They had to shut down the water.
On the receiving end of that, mouse control, saw it happening and was, called his boss. Is this you? No. Okay, well, this is bad. And then they were able to override it. But
if they hadn't, it would have been really bad.
So let's keep going down the path here. So we've talked about what a budget and all that. What can they do to maximize that and get the biggest bang for their buck and what they're buying from security folks?
I'll take that based on your guys' silence. So, one thing that we agreed on, when we obviously, had a little preparation for this discussion was something that we take to heart both internally to BullsEye, but we want to portray externally to our customers. And there's a lot of other great organizations out there from a technology perspective that are trying to help tackle this as well, is just, maximizing that budget by looking for the tools that embrace automation, they embrace deep learning, they embrace machine learning, they embrace synchronization across the tool set. They have as much integration and coverage across your existing technology stack so that you're minimizing the amount of windows that you have to have open, and minimizing that swivel chair, which is right also a time investment. But it's those next generation technologies, which often, I say next generation, but it's not next generation costs either. They're out there, they're just forward thinking, but they're really embracing the age of automation and embracing ways to work smarter and not harder. And I'll turn it over to you guys to add some flavor there.
So that's really where the key comes in my opinion, is working smarter than harder. And putting the right pieces in place can allow you to do that even with a small staff. I'll give you a perfect example. Something like on our security, utilizing our Sophos line. Sophos makes it simple for partnered with us to be able to manage anything real easily from a single pane of glass, and it makes it a kind of a unified solution when it comes to security, because it has the ability to stop damage spreading laterally across a network. It works with a security heartbeat between the firewall and the software that goes on the endpoints, all the way to the APs. So it works in combination. And then it even has a managed threat response type piece to it that, God forbid, if it did get beyond all that they're there automatically there to help and to assist. So realistically, it's getting that right unified product solution in there, in my opinion. Evan, you want to add anything to that?
I was gonna say the MTR, because they can scale it for less money than a salary of just one person that is skilled in running security systems. You can get a product to manage it for you. We offer that, and like I said, it's less expensive than one person's salary, and you get the benefit of a whole team because they have customers. It's all at scale. So
Yeah.
Threat hunting through all these things you mentioned, swivel chair, even with a single pane of glass and multiple products, threat hunting is a full-time job. It's not like I'm slow on a Friday type of thing. If you're waiting until the end of the week, you might have missed something important. So if you don't have the staff, having a managed solution is probably the most bang for your buck.
So that plays into another really good question, and that is, how are these small teams supposed to handle all these very complex ecosystems of security tools and boxes and all that? How are they supposed to manage all that?
Again, it goes back to smart tools. And again, having a centralized web portal to be able to help, and a partner to help assist with that, makes it easy. That's where an offering for somebody, say through us and something like that, would be where we would do all the heavy lifting, but a simple one pane portal where they can log in and check up on anything easily, and even make changes themselves if they choose to.
Yeah, I think what's important to remember, especially from a smaller team, maybe it's just a small organization in general, is that there are great tools out there that are geared for enterprises. They are they take a lot more lift on the front end. They take a lot of lift to get customized. They take a lot of lift to get tuned and get situated the way you want it to. There are lots of tools that are not like that are geared for small companies, for smaller teams, that have much lower lift. They have much lower, tuning, if any at all. And, that's really where BullsEye is taking our strategy for security products, is embracing those type of tools to help solve this problem for our customers, today, but also new customers. Yes, there are some drawbacks with some of these tools compared to the larger companies out there that they want you to do it all yourself, right? The true DIY tool, less support, whatever. You can get more out of those tools, sure, but you often, a lot of organizations can't afford it. But just know, I'm telling you right now, there are great tools that do the same thing for a lot less money, a lot less lift. The stuff that you're giving up is probably not even a major concern for you, today, and may not be ever, because you just don't need that type of breadth to get the coverage that you need to be, fully covered. I think it's a good point of how it ties back into budgeting there too.
No, that's a very good, valid point.
A lot of those like upper right quadrant products have upper right quadrant costs to them. So it's not, those are awesome for, 5,000 plus employees. And that's not what this conversation is for. This is for the small mid business where you've got 2 to 10 IT people, and you need a product that fits you, not just something famous that,
one product does not fit all.
Company. Exactly.
So we have a lot of people on this call from across the nation that looking at the list that's on here. And, a majority of them are selling in that small and medium-sized business all the time. Some of them hit enterprise on occasion. Some of them hit enterprise a lot. But almost all of them are in that small to medium-sized business arena. So when these organizations are considering a program or outsourcing, what are some of the points of advice that you guys can give to these folks to talk with their clients about?
Yeah, I'll jump on this one first. So, I've had a lot of these conversations over the years with security leaders, and I met with a lot of people from small and medium-sized businesses all the way up to large enterprise, and having the same conversation about building a team versus, maybe they're considering outsourcing everything. Maybe they're considering outsourcing just a part of it. And I think that's all stuff that needs to be considered. But the big thing in the type of conversations you can have is the company comfortable with having somebody outsource and control that function of security? Are you okay with that lack of touch on your side? Oftentimes, it's easier to throw it under the rug and say, hey, you guys take this, and you have the SLA and you pay for it, right? It's not something that's cheap. I mean, it's to a minimum outsourcing of just one product can oftentimes be more expensive than adding one or two, maybe even a team of people yourselves and doing it yourself. But it can be a lot easier, and it can take a lot of the stress and ownership off of your organization. So, you can kind of lay some of those responsibilities on the outsourcing firm. But it all starts with that understanding of how comfortable are you with that? How much do you want to get out of your security program? Do you want to own more of it or not? Versus, the option of, hey, we want to protect it ourselves. We want to build it ourselves. We want to own it ourselves. Even as a small team, it can be done, and it absolutely can be done. And we've talked about a couple ways that you can do it. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes time, and it takes investment, and it takes training, and it takes pieces. And it's just having those conversations and understanding, what's important to the business, because ultimately, we have to remember security is a business issue, and that's the whole purpose of this conversation. Is it's not an IT issue. It's not just a security department issue. I mean, it's there to protect the actual business. So really digging in and figuring out, what's most important and what's acceptable to leadership. I think there's a couple more points I'd like to make, but I'll wait and I'll let you guys jump in there.
Well, it's funny because I almost wanted to follow up with a question, because I'd like to see what you're going to say on that as well, Andrew, is the fact that there's an aspect you keep mentioning. You guys, you mentioned IT, and then you mentioned security. And for some people in their head, they look at that as, well, that's the same department. And it really shouldn't be the same department. And that's the big thing where people should see that. And for a smaller shop, with that being the case, and we'll go into a second why it should be separate departments, but with that being the case, would you say that smaller outfits should look at somewhat outsourcing a part of their IT the security of it, to keep that separation?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think if you're able to, have the case study and the business, business case for it, you should, because I definitely don't want to bash outsourcing firms altogether. I think I'm not a huge proponent, me personally, that's Andrew Witt's opinion, of outsourcing everything in security to an outside vendor. I just think that that's dangerous when you get into that lack of visibility. But I do think it's important to consider that as because there are, managed SIM solutions. There are managed, as we talked about, the managed threat response from Sophos. There are, there's managed incident response. There are different core functions of security that I think you can outsource, and I think you should consider it, depending on how small you are.
Yeah, because I just, and the reason, guys, you want to keep that separate. Security is the checks and balances. IT is the backbone that wants to keep the communication running, and that's their job. Security's job is to do the checks and balances and make sure that everybody else has kind of done what they need to do to make sure you're secure.
Yeah, I agree with the checks and balances, but another thing is it depends on how many hats that staff is wearing. You know, it's enough work to keep, um, Microsoft Exchange requests coming in and closing those tickets, getting people their laptop fixed, applications installed through the admin if that's restricted. Um, it, it's separate because IT is enough work without adding all of this to it.
Valid, valid, valid.
All right, so we're coming down to the bottom of the hour here, guys, and you've gone over a lot of things, and I think you shared a lot of really good information. So each of you take a couple minutes and let everybody know what are some of the key takeaways that they need to have from today to give to the small organizations that they deal with. Evan, let's start with you.
I mean, my key takeaway is all about like due diligence. If you know you have a gap, just knowing that is a liability, because if that gap is used to breach and it's something you didn't pay for or it's something you didn't patch, the company's at fault. And it could be the employees at fault. I mean, maybe you get fired. Maybe if you're the owner and you know it, your company closes, like Jim was saying. So I think due diligence and liability is a good reason to take this seriously.
Great. Jim, how about you?
I'm going to second and hammer exactly what he just said, because those are the two biggest pieces. Is doing your due diligence. You have to understand ignorance is no excuse. It really, you have to dig in and get to know that security, and to know it's really not a question of when it's going to happen. It's a question of, you just got to be prepared for it, and it can shut your doors down. So that's what you have to get them to understand, is to realize that security today is probably the biggest issue we have out there. It's terrorism to criminals, and there's lots of reasons that they want to get at you. And we highlighted some of them today. That supply chain right there, the customer that thinks they're too small, they don't understand why they would be a target. There's always a reason. So
perfect. Thank you. Andrew, how about you?
My biggest thing, and I think it always has been, and I'll relate it to some of the people listening in, is, keep in mind security has to be about the business. And I know that oftentimes IT leaders, maybe even just business leaders in general, don't always view it that way. They view it as this is the team that's always in my way. They're always telling me no. They're always, trying to stop me from doing something the way I want it to, or maybe the quickest way. Just know that security, we're not the bad guys. We want to be the yes, you can do this, but there's always going to be a but attached to it, because we want you to do it safely and securely, because we want to protect the business. And just remember that. I think that's the biggest thing is, security practitioners have their own feelings when it comes to how their opinions can be viewed and the things that they bring to the table. And I think as Evan mentioned, if you know the gaps, you got to voice them, and you got to make your voice loud and clear. And just doing that alone will help, protect the business. And, even if that means you're being loud and you're being noisy about getting new tools and getting new software and taking those next approach, you got to do it. And us as sales professionals trying to help organizations mature, we got to help with that noise and explain those benefits business-wise is the biggest takeaway, right? It's not just, I need this tool and this is how much it costs. This is how much I want to spend to protect the business.
Perfect. Well, you guys have given us a lot of good information today. I think you shared across security a lot of great things for smaller organizations. For everybody that's on the call, this has been recorded. It'll be out there if you need to share it with other individuals on your team, share it with your customers. I know the last one we did was shared a lot and people got a lot out of that. So I'm hoping this one did the same thing for you. Look forward to seeing you on our next happy half hour. And for that, everybody have a great rest of your afternoon. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today and your insights, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank
you, everybody.
Great. Thanks, everybody.